welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast Live. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Here we go. Wanted to get on the show here and discuss a couple of or three topics that kind of interested me today. Share my thoughts on those with you. I know it's an abnormal time. If you notice, I'm kind of bouncing around in terms of trying to find the right time, see who I can reach at these different periods and whatnot. So just getting on here. So what I'll do is I'll give a few minutes, see if anyone pops up in the chat, and then if not, we'll go ahead and get it going. But yeah, like I said, just had some thoughts. I think I got a pretty interesting show here today. With some interesting topics. Obviously, we got the Jets, we got Deshaun Watson, which is like, whoa. And then got Tyreek Hill. So definitely interested to share with you what was on my mind regarding these topics. And part of the reason I'm going a little earlier tonight is obviously because we got the big presidential candidate debate later on. So I want to sit back and watch that. Contrary to popular belief, it's not always sports with me. So, yeah, definitely want to check that out when I get done here. So it's not that serious. What's good, bro? Good to see you. Good to see you. So yeah, like I said, got these topics here, and I wanted to just come on to the show, go live, and share them with you and see what we got going. All right, looks like we got some people starting to come in. Slowly but surely, they're trickling in. So you know what time it is. You know what we do. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't. There we go. So I just saw while I was waiting for the little spiel to end, I just saw something interesting kind of flash across here and on YouTube. You know how when you're watching a video, it has your like suggested videos for you on the right side. And one of them was from ESPN, and it says Joe Mazzulla, Celtics head coach Joe Mazzulla, says Celtics still have something to prove. And the reason that kind of stuck out to me is because if you remember, I think the last episode we did, one of the topics we had was players in the NBA that had something to prove, that had the most to prove next season. And I was saying that despite winning the championship last year and despite being first team All NBA last year, despite leading the NBA finals in points, rebounds, and assists for his team, I said that Jason Tatum was one of those players that had a whole lot to prove just because of the way people look at him, the disrespect that he got in the Olympics, the disrespect a lot of NBA fans have for him. So I felt like he's got a lot to prove. So that did stand out to me that Joe Mazzulla says the Celtics still have a lot to prove. Also, because I think championship coaches, championship players, a lot of times they all know that, you know, kind of the saying is anybody can win one, right? Obviously, anybody can't win one. But if you win a championship, that's great. But the mark of a team that can kind of go down in history and whatnot is winning back-to-back. Why does that? Because when you win back-to-back, then that shows that you were able to not just get lucky or not just get on a run, but to come back again and prove that you're that good and, you know, to survive being everybody's proverbial dragon that they have to slay, right? No longer being the hunter, you're now the hunted. And to be able to get through that and repeat as a champion is an amazing thing. And then, you know we have a few teams in history that were actually able to three-peat. So I think it's only 3 teams. It's Shaq, Kobe, Lakers, obviously Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Bulls, and then, of course, Bill Russell's 1960s Celtics that won, 8 straight. So, so when you see a team that can repeat, that lets you know that they're special, and it kind of puts them in that all-time category. So I thought that was pretty cool. But all right, let's go ahead and let's get it rolling. So as you see, the first topic there, and this was something I wanted to touch on one of the bigger storylines in the NFL during this offseason, et cetera, was Aaron Rodgers and what he would be able to do coming back off an Achilles injury. One, because an Achilles injury is one of the most major and difficult injuries to rehab from in sports, period. And the fact that Aaron Rodgers is, 39 going on 40 years old this year. So I don't know if we've ever seen any elite player come back from an Achilles at that age and still be elite, right? And, in fairness, the last time we saw Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, he wasn't the elite quarterback that won 4 MVPs and that we saw that was so good. So a lot of people were under the impression, like, if you just add Aaron Rodgers to the Jets with that elite defense, which didn't look elite last night, but if you add Aaron Rodgers to the Jets with that defense, which is a defense that was among the best statistically and talent wise throughout the last few years under Robert Saleh, the general thought was that would be a much better team. That would be a team that would probably make the playoffs and the longest playoff drought in the league. I think it's at 14 years now. And that would also be a team that would, with Aaron Rodgers, be able to maybe even contend for an AFC championship or a Super Bowl, right? But we know last year on the 4th play of the season, he tears his Achilles and he spends the whole rest of the year working his way back. And obviously we know that towards the back end of the regular season last year, there was thoughts about it and people were thinking that, well, maybe if the Jets can make the playoffs, Aaron Rodgers can be back in time to make a run. But needless to say, that didn't happen. Zach Wilson, we know, is not, he's far from an elite quarterback and he's not even on the roster anymore. He's now in Denver. So Aaron Rodgers is now back. So the thought was, okay, how are the Jets going to look with Aaron Rodgers? What is he going to be able to do coming off that injury? So we saw they had the opener in primetime last night against the 49ers, and they didn't look great, right? The 49ers ended up winning that game. Was it 32-19? And I think Aaron Rodgers probably looked, to me, as good as we could have expected him to look in terms of in terms of how long he's been out, and again, his age and the injury, etc. Right? And then he was playing against a really good team too. So I don't know if anyone expected him to come out and light it up right away. Right? We know how good he has been historically throughout his career. We know that the guy is special, but I don't know that anyone expected that he was going to come out and light it up right away. And he didn't. He was 13 for 21, 167 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. And the 1 pick that wasn't really on him. I think it was one of those that got popped up in the air and then the 49ers caught it. So that wasn't really on him. That was more so just the receiver. He put the ball where it needed to be. But at the end of the day, quarterback, he's going to get, that interception is going to go on him. So decent game, not great. I was surprised that he spent as much time under center as he did, because obviously coming off an Achilles and having to drop back from under center, I thought that they would have spent more time with him in the shotgun formation. And we saw that later in the game. His shotgun, the drop back is less deep and it's less demanding on that Achilles. And also from the shotgun, you have more time to kind of see what's happening and survey the defense and maybe know a little bit in advance where you got to go with the ball, etc. Not that he has any difficulty processing. He's seen it all in his time in the league. We also know he's got a quick release and a good arm and elite arm talent. But, I think that, again, coming off an injury like that, what you would want to do is put him in the best situation to have as much time as possible and to stress that Achilles as little as possible. So I expected more shotgun, but so be it. Again, not a terrible game, but terrible maybe by his standards. And then his opposition, Brock Purdy, on the other side, 19 for 29, 231 yards. A pretty simple evening. He made the throws he needed to make. But here's the deal. The Jets are known for their defense, right? Like I was saying in the beginning of this topic, the whole thing was that the prevailing thought was that if you add a quarterback of Aaron Rodgers' caliber to that Jets defense, then you would be in a situation where you really have a contending team. Now, it's only game 1, and we know that there's a long way to go. And it's very possible that the Jets could get things in order. They don't have a killer schedule per se, so who knows what it could end up being, right? But I'm looking at this thing, and I'm thinking, okay, from what we saw, and again, that was the Super Bowl representative for the NFC in that game. So it's not like they were playing a bum team, but there's a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to be done. Now, you would rather the work be done after a win than a loss, but still a lot of work to be done. Now, the Jets, known for their defense, at least over the last few years, and they got carved up on the ground, man. Christian McCaffrey didn't even play, reigning offensive player of the year. He did not play last night, but his backup, Jordan Mason, did, and he got busy. Tyler was good, bro. Good to see you. Good to see you. What do you got to say? First half, Rodgers looked sharp, but there's a problem. Only attempted 2 passes to the right hashes, 0 pass attempts between the hashes, all the rest to the left half of the field. Interesting. I would say that might have been a health concern because I'm picturing this in my head right now. So he drops back and he throws to the right. That's more planting and more pressure on that injured Achilles. I believe it was the right one. Was it the right one? If it was, okay, I would have to go back and check. But okay, so we're on the same page. Problem pushing off that leg. I don't know if it's a problem or if it's maybe mental, or they're just trying to, let his body get into the flow of playing these games and making these motions again under game speed and game pressure. So I think you're right about that, because that's exactly where I was going with that in terms of, dropping back, planting, and pushing off that. Right. Okay, cool. So we're on the same page. Good stuff. Yeah. So that said, where was I? I was talking about Jordan Mason rushing the ball 28 times for 147 yards, doing his best Christian McCaffrey impression last night. So he did really well. And overall, San Francisco played it exactly the way Kyle Shanahan would like to, right? 29 pass attempts, 38 run attempts. So 38 carries for 180 rushing yards last night. And that is the way that a Kyle Shanahan team wants to do it. And you saw they were exploiting one of the better front fours in the league and just moving them completely off the ball and just running it at will. It was really impressive to see how they were able to do that against one of the better defenses in the league. And so I think the Jets, there's probably for the next game coming up, there's probably some pride at stake there. Again, knowing that they're supposed to be an elite defense, but getting run all over like that, it's almost embarrassing and disrespectful if you consider yourself a great defense, right? Think about it. I'm trying to remember the last time we saw any of the truly elite defenses get run all over like that. It generally doesn't happen. So we'll see what the Jets end up doing in the future there. So when you can run it like that, you can control time of possession. We saw a game where the Jets were continually unable to get the 49ers off the field on third down, whether it was Brock Purdy completing a timely throw or whether it was, again, the 49ers just being able to run for it and keep a drive going. So that's tough when a defense has to stay on the field like that. And also, the Jets offense wasn't good enough to keep the 49ers offense off the field. So we have to think about that. So again, a lot of things to work on. Only game one, but it was kind of an interesting peak. And so clearly, if the Jets are going to hope to be improved, Aaron Rodgers is going to have to play better. And guess what else? They're going to have to do 2 things that they were not able to do. And if you watch this show, you know what my motto is when it comes to winning football. Run the ball, stop the run. I know it's not sexy. People want to see the ball flying all over the yard. People want to see 40-point games and all this. Just run the ball and stop the run. These are time-tested, age-old tenets to having success and playing winning football. Kyle Shanahan understands that, except in the Super Bowl, I guess. He seems to forget what got him there. But anyway, that's a different story. But the fact is, if you can effectively run the football, 38 carries, 180 yards, if you can stop the run, the Jets had 19 carries, 68 yards, then you will win most of your games. You will control possession. You will keep your defense fresh. Like, these are the simplest recipes to win. Jim Harbaugh understands that. John Harbaugh understands that, right? Most of the defensive coaches understand that. But you get a lot of people saying that in the modern NFL, you can't win that way. You can win a whole bunch of games and put yourself in position to have success. And then if you have a quarterback that can make the big time throws, well, when that gets taken away from you, or when the running gets tougher, because obviously in the playoffs the defenses are better, when it's more difficult to run the football, then you have that quarterback who can do those things if you need him to, right? But again, I guess I'm just a proponent of old school football, man. Run the damn ball. And we saw that with the Baltimore Ravens Thursday night. Again, refusal to consistently run the football, at least from running backs, to set things up, whether it's play action or RPO game, etc. And I'm digressing a little bit, but you know, if you're Baltimore, you got a running back like Derrick Henry. He needs those carries to get lathered up. But anyway, so the Jets go down last night, 32-19. Again, a lot of work to do. And one of the things I'm also thinking about when it comes to the Jets is this is likely a season where if they don't have some level of success, hopefully make the playoffs or really be competitive, Robert Saleh is going to lose that job. He's going to be gone. So we'll see what Aaron Rodgers is able to do. We'll see what that defense is able to do. And again, let's take a look at the Jets schedule real quick. I think their schedule is pretty reasonable here. Schedule Jets. So San Francisco. So next up they play Tennessee, which is not going to be a rollover game, but looking at how Tennessee blew that lead against the Bears the other night, the Jets probably can deal with them. Then they've got New England, who suddenly looks to be maybe a better team than we thought originally, beating Cincinnati in week 1. Then they got Denver, who Bo Nix suddenly he got a taste of real NFL defense. I think he threw a couple of picks in the opener. I mean, he's a rookie, right? So the Jets should be able to feast on him, whether it's Sauce Gardner or whether it's that front four. Minnesota, they won their opener, but I still don't believe in them. That game's probably in London because it looks like it's got a 9:30 kickoff. But anyway, then they got Buffalo. So that's a tough one. But the Jets can kind of get this thing rolling in the next 5 games or so before they got Buffalo, Pittsburgh, New England, and Houston. That's a tough 4-game stretch right there. Then you got Arizona, who they can probably deal with, Indianapolis, Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, the Rams, Buffalo again, and Miami to end out the season. So I definitely think the Jets can go 500. And if they steal a couple of games in there, then, 10-7 is possible. And however the rest of the AFC shakes out is going to dictate whether or not they make the playoffs. But it's a tough one, man. It's a tough one. And I really, I would like to see them make the playoffs. Just, I'm a fan of Robert Saleh. I know I'm a journalist. I'm not supposed to be a fan, but so be it. I'm a fan of Robert Saleh. I think the guy is, I think he's a solid coach. I think he was dealt a raw hand his first few years. But it is what it is. He took the job, so he's got to deal with that, and he was supposed to make the most out of it. And Aaron Rodgers, I also want to see what he can become. Quick side note: if let's see, what's the name of this? If you like sports biographies, documentaries, or whatever biographies, I'm sorry. I'm currently actually listening to Out of the Darkness: The Mystery of Aaron Rodgers by Ian O'Connor. He has written a bunch of really good sports biographies. I think he wrote Belichick's, he wrote Coach K, a number of really good sports biographies. Really good writer. Check that out. It's very interesting. It gives a lot of good information about Aaron Rodgers as a player, his family dynamics, all the different things that lead up to the Aaron Rodgers that you see now. Really interesting stuff. Anyway, so yeah, man. So looking forward to see what the Jets do going forward. I think that the 49ers are clearly, easily one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the NFC, and probably a favorite for a whole lot of people to come out of that conference and represent the NFC in the Super Bowl again. And at some point, Kyle Shanahan is going to have to get it done. And I don't know when that point is going to be, because next year they're going to have to pay Brock Purdy, and that is going to that's going to cause holy hell with that salary cap, and you might start seeing pieces fall off that team. So I don't know, man. I don't know. But yeah, let's leave it right there. Haven't really got much comments on this topic in the comments section, but that's cool. What I'll do is I'll open up the phone lines real quick, and if anybody wants to call and give their thoughts on what they see from the Jets going forward this season, and what they thought about the game the other night, you know the number, 904-219-8264, 904-219-8264. Waiting for you. Let's get it. Yeah, overall, I really did I expected a better game out of that Monday night opener. I thought it was going to be closer. I didn't pick the Jets to win, but I thought it would have been a closer, more competitive game. But, I don't know if it's the Jets didn't play well, or the 49ers really played well. I'm not really sure like what it is, a little of both maybe. But, we got what we got. And again, a lot of work to be done. Jets got to got to shore up that run game, and they've got to get to stopping the run, because if you watch them get gouged like that up front, very disappointing for a team that prides itself on its defense. So that's what we got. Okay. Looks like we're probably not going to get any calls on that. So let's go to the next topic. This one was weird to me, right? I initially thought about, let's see, hold on. Niners could have the new Justin Tucker. Yeah, their kicker looks pretty good. I would think, though, let me go back to this real quick. I would think that the new Justin Tucker, maybe not quite the leg, but in terms of elite accuracy, is probably Harrison Butker from Kansas City. That guy's a really, really good kicker. So I would think that might be the new Justin Tucker. All right. So, yeah, Deshaun Watson. When I first thought about this topic, I was thinking about how poorly he played and how poorly the Browns played the other day on Sunday. And it was interesting because I had actually chosen the Browns to win that game against Dallas, because I'm thinking, well, they're at home. They have an elite defense. I still don't believe in Dak Prescott, even though he got the bag. Jerry Jones. But anyway, yeah, I thought that that defense would be able to get after him. They being the Dallas Cowboys, don't have much of a run game. The run game they got was by committee, 25 carries, 102 yards on Sunday. But again, that was by committee. Zeke, 10 carries for 40 yards. Not terrible, but nowhere near the Zeke we once knew. Rico Dowdle, never even heard of this kid. 8 carries for 26 yards. CeeDee Lamb, 3 carries for 25 yards. And a couple of guys down the line, 1 carry here, 1 carry there. So nothing really impressive. Obviously, no bell cow back anymore. But yeah, I really was under the impression that the Cleveland Browns would be able to win this game. I thought they would. And lo and behold, they got handled. They almost got doubled up on. Cowboys win 33-17. And so Deshaun Watson played an absolutely terrible game, like a horrendous game. And I'm watching this thing and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. So I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about the topic. And my first thought was, in terms of the on the field stuff, is this the worst trade and the worst contract in NFL history? Because obviously Houston trades, he forced the trade. He sat out for a year and then he got traded to Cleveland. So then Cleveland gives him I want to say 5 years, the $230 million fully guaranteed contract, the first of that amount and that length in NFL history. And so, I know a lot of people that thought this was signaling a changing of the guard in the way contracts were given out and the contracts would be structured going forward in the NFL. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. And let me give my thoughts on that before we go forward, right? I can see both sides of the coin. So we know the NFL is one of the most physical games. It's one of the most dangerous games. You could die on the field. We saw Damar Hamlin almost die on the field the other day. Guys are constantly getting injured just because of the level of physicality, even though they've made the game considerably less physical over time than it used to be, right? So the argument could be that these players deserve fully guaranteed contracts. I totally get that. Now you flip it to the other side and you say, well, if I'm an owner, right? Because this is a business as well as entertainment, as well as a sport full of competition, right? Why would I give fully guaranteed contracts to guys that I know there is a very high chance that they're going to get injured? Why would I give them a fully guaranteed contract? That doesn't make sense from a business standpoint, right? So I get that. Also, on the other side, on that same side, you see a lot of times, obviously not in the NFL because you almost never see fully guaranteed contracts, but in the NBA, you see a lot of times guys go off in their contract year, they get paid, and then they get fat and happy. And, it's like, whoa, what happened? You don't get the same player again once they sign that mega deal, right? And so for that reason, I generally haven't been a proponent of fully guaranteed contracts. I'm a proponent of earn stuff, right? And you will be compensated properly for what you're worth. Just earn it, right? And I often give the example of Joe Flacco. Now, his deal wasn't fully guaranteed, but I often say Joe Flacco should have never, ever been the highest paid player in the history of the NFL. But at one point he was. And why was he? Because he wanted a new deal. Bisciotti didn't want to, give him the money that he was looking for. So he bet on himself, went out, had one of the greatest postseason runs in history, and won a championship. And that's what I've often said about Dak. Like, you want this money, just go out there and earn it. And for those people who say, well, Dak, the Cowboys have to do a better job of putting more talent around Dak, stop that. It's a lie and it's a false narrative, because more than once in Dak's career, he's had the most all-pro selections with the Cowboys, and he's had the most Pro Bowlers. So it's not like there's not talent around him. He also has a Super Bowl championship level head coach, right? He's got a coach that has won a championship, and under the stewardship of said head coach, he's had some of the best seasons of his career, right? So we got to stop acting like Dallas has not done everything to put Dak in a position to have success. Anyway, so Deshaun Watson gets this deal a couple of years ago, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I would have done that. But they were so desperate for a guy that they thought could be a quarterback to get them to the next level. Obviously, he was at the time one of the best quarterbacks in the league, playing for the Houston Texans, right? And so we can look here and we can see what Deshaun Watson was doing at that time, right? If you look at the 2020 season, he led the league in passing, 4,823 yards. He had 33 touchdowns to only 7 interceptions. Like, that's crazy, right? He led the league in yards per attempt, 8.9. You can see that. So he was really doing his thing. He was playing extremely well. 2 years before that, over 4,000 yards passing. Year before that, 3,800 yards passing. So he was really playing well. And then blah, 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 everything pops up in Houston. He wants out of there. So he says he's going to sit out for a year. And then once that happens, out come all these allegations of craziness in terms of the massages and all that stuff, right? And I'm not going to get too far into the weeds on that. But it was a weird situation, because one of the things I often point to is Deshaun Watson. A lot of people want to light him up for the whole massage thing, right? But what I often point to is that he was investigated twice, I think indicted twice in the state of Texas for these alleged crimes. We got to say alleged because he's never convicted of anything, right? He settled out of court with the accusers, multiple accusers. So anyway, he was indicted twice, and both times the grand jury chose not to pursue charges. So I think that's very interesting that you have a black man in the state of Texas indicted twice. Both times the grand jury decided they weren't going to pursue charges. So to me, that says that maybe there wasn't a whole lot to these allegations, but we live in a different era where we have to believe everyone who says something happened. All right, cool. So next up, he ends up going to Cleveland. Cleveland hands him the bag, $230 million, fully guaranteed, largest contract in history at the time. All right, he gets that, and then he still has to go through all the stuff in terms of all his cases that are hanging over him. I think at one point it was like 60 something women coming out accusing him of sexual misconduct during these quote unquote massage sessions and all that. So he was fighting it. He just ends up paying out the settlement. And then he had, I think in his first season in Cleveland, the league handed him an 11-game suspension, right? Okay, whatever. So he's got that. And he's never been the same since he's arrived in Cleveland. He has never come close to being the Deshaun Watson that we expected to see, the one that played in Houston. Last year, he comes back, and I think he only played 6 games because he got injured. Let's look at those stats again. Last year he was injured, only played 6 games. Now, he was 5-1 in those games, but that's more so because of that elite defense, only completing 61% of his passes. I mean, just not good. 7 touchdowns, 4 picks, just far off of his level of productivity and his level of efficiency that we saw when he was with the Houston Texans. So you're watching Deshaun Watson now, and you're like, what happened? This is not the same dude. So now that's 2 years in a row that Cleveland is not getting any return on the investment that they put out, giving this guy all this money. All right. Now he comes back this season, and in his first game, what do we have here? In his first game, absolutely terrible. They play against the Cowboys, and this is what you get from Deshaun Watson. 24 of 45, 161 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, a QBR of 9.3. Absolutely horrendous. Just a terrible, terrible performance. And you're like, man, this is where I came up, just looking at that, looking at those stats, looking at that game. This is where I started thinking, like, this might be a topic. Is this the worst? Is this the worst deal in NFL history? Because it's really bad. There we go. So here's the other thing, right? Good stuff, Tyler. Counts $73 million against the cap the next 2 seasons with no escape by cutting him. Talk about job security. And I don't know exactly what Cleveland is trying to do cap-wise or free agency-wise or trade-wise, because they restructured his deal before this season started so that they put his money into a bonus. So he got $44 million up front before the season even started. So that's a heck of a deal. But yeah, he played absolutely horribly, against the Cowboys. I want to say the Cowboys defense got 6 sacks. I mean, he just looks nothing like the Deshaun Watson of old. But even more so than his problems on the field, we have another issue with Deshaun Watson. So Rob Parker and Chris Broussard were discussing this on The Odd Couple, I think, last night. So I got a clip here. I want you to hear that, and then we'll come back and discuss it further.
That's right, Chris. And it is a very disappointing story because a new civil lawsuit has been filed in Houston accusing Deshaun Watson of sexual assault and battery from an incident in October of 2020. According to the filing, the lawsuit alleges that on a first date with a woman, while she was in the bathroom applying makeup, she came to her bedroom and to find Watson completely naked on her bed, face down on his stomach, requesting that she massage his buttocks. Things progressed as Watson turned over, demanded that she massage him, this time gesturing towards his groin. Somehow, Watson asked her what she wanted to do instead. She said she didn't want to do this. And he ended up partially disrobing her, penetrating her vagina without consent, implicit or explicit, before she eventually manages to escape. Grabbing a heavy piece of decor for self-defense, Watson, taken aback, quote, stormed out of her apartment following her.
And this is a civil suit.
Civil lawsuit. The NFL has declined comment, and you recall that he was suspended for 11 games from the previous slew of incidences.
Right.
Should be noted that in their punishment, the NFL reserved the right to revisit any additional punishment
if there were any more
should more information come out involving any of the previous cases. Because this is a new case, we'll see how that goes from there.
And this is also, because initially when I saw the headline and I'm reading it and I read the dates, it felt like initially it was just, not that this was okay, but it was more of the same, right? It was like, okay, another woman's come forward. Interesting, why didn't she get involved in that other lawsuit? But once you read the details, she's alleging rape.
Right.
Like that's a whole, because none of the other ones were rape.
It was
like
about,
that,
right.
You know?
It was a massage that turned sexual.
Yes,
you know what I
yes,
mean? But not,
yes.
She's saying she was forcibly raped. Right.
Yeah.
And
so
we don't know,
obviously
and Chris, we always say that. These are alleged allegations. Nobody knows. He hasn't been convicted of anything, so we should start from there. And I'll say this, Chris, and a man is innocent until proven guilty, and that's not what I'm saying here. But there comes a times when you can just decide this is not what you want anymore, and I'm talking about the distraction of it all. And it would be different if Deshaun Watson was playing quarterback well, Chris. You know, you'll bend over backwards.
It would. Kobe Bryant.
Right, Kobe Bryant, who had a rape case on him.
He was going to trial, flying to trial, and then flying back to play in the game that night from Colorado to LA. I was covering that series with the Spurs.
That would never happen today, but it was a different time. Yep. And the NBA was cool with it, that he flew the Lakers plane. Like, nobody thought anything of it. Like, that wouldn't happen today.
And again, to your point, innocent until proven guilty.
No doubt. And here, my only point on, if I'm the Browns, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. We made a bad deal, Chris. We signed a guy. We thought we were getting the All-Pro, Pro Bowl quarterback who was dynamic and all that. We thought we were getting them. That didn't happen. And now here we are off to a bad start to the season, and now the distraction of yet more baggage or more issues involving Deshaun Watson. If I'm the Browns ownership or front office, I don't know if I think I don't want to deal with it anymore and have to figure out, Chris, do I find lawyers to look for moral turpitude, to find something
like
in the contract
clause where you can get out of the contract.
Where you can get out of the contract and say, because of this, we're not going to pay you, or you know what I mean? And moral clauses are put into these kind of deals all the time.
So crazy, right? To think that Deshaun Watson, and you know what, this is starting to make me think that first, my first thought when I heard about this was, where was she when all these other cases were going on? Then my second thought was, okay, if she alleges that he raped her, like, why is it a civil case? immediately that makes me think money grab. Now, I know that's not the best thing to say in the Me Too era and the believe all women era, but I think the big thing here is the fact that she's now coming forward after he already settled those other cases, and it's a civil case. She's probably hoping that he'll settle it to make it go away, because no one is going to believe anything that he has to say in his defense on a topic like this, on an accusation like this, based on the past and based on how many women previously accused him of sexual misconduct. And it's tough, man. Again, our criminal justice system is supposed to be built on innocent until proven guilty, and this is not I'm not trying to take this show there, but real quick, it's not innocent until proven guilty when you're in a situation where there's a woman accusing a man of something. That man now has to prove himself innocent. It's actually the opposite. It's guilty until proven innocent. And even if he should beat the case, the other problem now becomes the other problem now becomes that whether he beats the case or not, there is the how do I want to say this? There is the perception of him that's probably never going to go away, that people think that he's a degenerate or he's a sexual predator or what have you. And it's tough, man. Now, I'm sure he made some mistakes, that did some things he wishes he could take back, but it's tough. So now back to the football part, what Rob Parker was saying, and I think, and Chris Broussard, are the Cleveland Browns at this point now looking for some type of out legally in this contract, the like moral turpitude or whatever? Are they looking for something to get out of it and get out from under all that money? Like, that's problematic. And it's bad overall that you have a situation like this. And to their point, if he had been healthy all this time and he was lighting it up when he gets on the field, well, then we know that people will fight night and day for a player that's dominant, right? I always like to point back to, again, different time, but late 1980s, early 90s, for the New York Giants, teammates literally had to go and get Lawrence Taylor out of a crack house on Sunday morning before a game. Like, that literally happened. That's not my opinion. That's a real thing. And so we say that to say that exceptions will be made for exceptional people and exceptional players. We see that all the time. So this whole thing, man, this is tough. You got the off the field drama going on with Deshaun Watson. And of course, that's also going to bring, I'm sure, women's groups, et cetera. We know that the Cleveland Browns were protested when they first signed him. And I'm sure the protests will kind of rear their ugly heads again and start back up. So we know that's going on. And then the fact is he's not playing well on the field. So I'm sure this stuff is messing with his mind, and maybe his skill set is not the same as it once was, after having sat out a year, and then he had the 11-game suspension. Then he comes back for the 6 games, super rusty. Then he gets hurt again last season, misses 11 games out of 17. And now he comes back in his first game back, he gets manhandled and mollywopped. So I don't think we ever see the Deshaun Watson again that we saw with the Houston Texans. I think it's a very bad spot to be in for everyone involved. And the question is now, are the Cleveland Browns looking for a way to try and get out of this? Can Deshaun Watson beat this case? And even if he does, his reputation, I don't think, can ever be repaired or recovered, man. So this is tough. And so that brings me back around to the original subject of the topic. Was this the worst contract in NFL history? Because right now it looks bad. Not only did you pay this dude a bunch, but you gave him a fully guaranteed deal, knowing everything that was going on with him. And then on top of that, now he has another case pop up. And this one, sounds like it was even worse than the first one. So, I mean, it's just bad overall, man. I don't even know what to say about it. I'm hoping it's not true, because you never want to see something like that. But then the other part of that is, even if it's not true, his name has been smeared forever, right? And I guess you could countersue her, for the slander and the defamation of character, et cetera. But at the end of the day, like, people think about you what they think about you already. So even if you were to countersue, number one, what would you get? She's probably a semi-regular person, not a person that has a whole lot of resources for you to go after. And then secondly, you're going to be looked at not only as, a sexual deviant, but you're also going to be looked at as a bully going after the little person who is just trying to, do whatever. And I'm sure a lot of people are on her side and believe her. Salam Sneed, what's going on, my brother? How are you, man? Good to see you in here. Good to see you. So yeah, man, this Deshaun Watson thing is It's crazy. I do think it's the worst deal in the history of the NFL. And it's amazing to me that people actually thought that this would become the norm because he got that fully guaranteed deal. And now I'm sure some people are going to point to the Dak Prescott and say, well, he got 231 in total guarantees where Deshaun Watson got 230 fully guaranteed, but not quite the same, apples to oranges. But, we'll see where these deals go going forward. And I'm not going to get into the Dak thing again. Y'all already know what my thoughts and my opinions are on Dak Prescott. So at this time, what I'm going to do is yes, Need. Yeah, your Browns are in a bad way, brother. Bad way. And I don't know how much you heard on my of my soliloquy regarding Deshaun Watson, but even if he didn't do this, I mean, people think what they think already, and he's not playing up to a level where his play can overcome that. I referenced earlier back in the late 80s, early 90s, where you had a guy like Lawrence Taylor, an all-time great, literally having to be taken out of a crack house on game day by his teammates. But guess what? He was that elite of a player that he could get away with it. So it is what it is. Yeah. I feel you. Don't blame Watson, blame the front office, because they didn't have to give him that deal, right? And what was he going to turn that down? 230 fully guaranteed? Of course not, So it is what it is. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead right now and I'm going to open up the phone lines, 904-219-8264, 904-219-8264. I put it in the chat, and of course it's also scrolling at the bottom of the screen. So yeah, I would love to hear from some of you regarding this topic. I know it's touchy and I know it's dangerous, but it's a major topic in the sports world today, and that's what we do. I want to believe I navigated that properly and fairly, so hopefully I won't get lit up or hit by YouTube regarding that. So yeah, let's take this call. Sneed, what's up, my brother?
Bruce, how are you, man?
I'm doing all right, man. Give me your thoughts.
Man, so I'm my team.
Say again, you were breaking up there. Say that again.
I'm from Cleveland, and this is my team.
Right.
And that's the quarterback I'm stuck with.
Mm-hmm.
When the GM decided to offer that contract, when you look at the structure, that's the problem with the contract. It's not even the dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
It's the structure of the deal. When they offered it to him and he signed it, I said it was awful.
Mm-hmm.
I knew they were going to regret it. They mortgaged the future on a guy who was having legal issues. And when you were talking about production outweighing the risk, well, now you don't have that production and you have all this risk. You might as well take that money and just throw it out the window. Like, open the window, turn on a fan,
Mm-hmm.
and just start throwing the money at the window.
Right. Yeah.
You know what? Write a check to St. Jude, bro.
Yeah.
And just write it off your taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst part about this, Bruce, I'm watching a guy like Baker Mayfield be a serviceable quarterback in Tampa Bay.
He's better than serviceable in Tampa Bay.
He wins games.
Mm-hmm.
And they're happy with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a guy who here was playing hurt, injured, too tough for his own good.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what the Browns did. They swapped their future, which included Baker Mayfield as a high draft pick, like the highest.
Mm-hmm. Right.
For Watson, because they thought this is a proven commodity.
Yes.
He's an all-pro talent, a unique talent, and all those things are true. But that thing hanging over him is so risky.
Yeah.
And they just didn't play it right.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fireable offense as a GM. The GM, and I don't call for people's jobs, but it is absolutely a fireable offense to offer that contract to a player with so much question marks.
Yeah. It's desperation. But
yes,
the owner had to sign off on that too, though. So it's not just the GM. But go ahead.
No, this is a problem from the top down.
Mm-hmm.
This is dysfunction of the highest order, and it's been this way for a long time. Now, I don't blame the owner for trying, because that's what it is, Bruce. It's a bet. They bet that the upside from Watson was going to be better and worth the risk over Mayfield, and it just hasn't played out that way. So they bet, they lost. And it's not like, oh, we have to wait and see. Dog, it's been 3 years. You know what I'm saying, Bruce? There's nothing left to see. I mean, you tell me how you feel about any future of any of this improving. I don't see it.
Yeah, and I think to me the biggest thing is that he's not playing well enough to be able to overcome that. Like if he was getting busy, you know, the Browns would be fighting and working to they would be doing everything they could to kind of, I don't know whether cover this up or help him through it or what have you, but he's not playing well. So that makes you expendable. And that's when, I don't know if you heard the clip that we played from The Odd Couple where Rob Parker and Chris Broussard were talking about, you know, maybe Cleveland now starts getting lawyers to look through this contract. Is there some morals clauses in there that we can use to get rid of him and, you know, not have to pay this money? And then hopefully that gets you exempt under, you know, you don't have the salary cap hit, right? Because it's not just you're cutting him just to cut him, but now you have a different way that situation broke. So you do that. And then the question now becomes, well, what do you do at the quarterback position? Because he was old, but Joe Flacco played his butts off for you guys last year. And now it's like, okay, well, you let him go. Is Jameis Winston going to get you what you need? We'll see. I mean, you know, if there's any type of what's the word I'm looking for? If the NFL follows its own model, pretty soon here, Deshaun Watson's going to be on the commissioner's exempt list, so Jameis is going to have to get these starts, right? Right. Or if history, you know, follows itself, then God forbid he's going to end up getting injured at some point this season. He hasn't been able to stay healthy for a while either. So it's going to be one or the other. So Jameis is going to get his time on the field, and we'll see. Hopefully for Cleveland, I'm a Ravens fan, obviously, but hopefully for Cleveland, that doesn't happen until Nick Chubb gets back. So then you get another major piece of that offense back to kind of help bolster and make things easier for Jameis Winston and make things easier for that defense.
You know, you brought up the point about lawyers sifting through the contract.
Mm-hmm.
The Browns, they built that contract.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they needed lawyers to realize how stupid they are, I mean, that is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
They wrote it. You know, the agent and Deshaun signed it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
That's
I mean?
true.
It was negotiated. They know exactly what's in it. So I hope the Browns front office gets exactly what they deserve. You know, life is full of lessons. Life is full of lessons. I mean, this is what it is.
It is.
There are outcomes to the decisions that you make,
Mm-hmm.
whether negative or positive. There are outcomes. You will be given what you deserve. It always works out that way.
It does.
So they gambled, they lost, and then things were kind of like looking up, like they overachieved a little bit last year, in my opinion, based on all that transpired. And, you know, a little bit of some other things. But I mean, I really hope they bottom out
Mm-hmm.
and that they understand the gravity of these decisions that they make as a franchise. Like, you keep saying next year and this and that. This is nonsense. You have the foundation of your franchise. Is there any more important position in any sport that isn't an individual sport?
No, there is not.
And this guy is at the massage parlor getting it in. Unstoppable. Cannot be corrected. Cannot be fixed.
You know what,
Broken.
Sneed? One of these days, you and I are going to talk offline. I have some thoughts about that I don't want to share publicly, but we're going to have a talk offline about that. But yeah, that's a weird situation. Obviously, you know, with that many accusations, I think the guy's got a bit of a freak in him. But, you know, all right, I'm gonna leave it there. Yeah, a lot of accusations, a lot of stuff going on. It's tough, and you're right. Cleveland gave him the deal. Deshaun Watson, he wasn't gonna turn it down. $230 million fully guaranteed. Yeah, give me that. You know what I'm saying? So,
You know, it's crazy, Bruce. You probably remember Josh Gordon.
I do.
In my opinion, possibly a better talent at his position than Deshaun Watson, because Watson
I can
has
agree with that.
accuracy. You know what I'm saying? Like, Watson isn't a very accurate quarterback. Never really was.
Well,
But
I don't know if
Gordon was an absolute stallion. He never even practiced, and he was running routes
Mhm.
that were elementary, but just the speed and the talent was so pure that he broke records in like 3/4 of a season.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me say this. I don't necessarily agree with you that Watson had accuracy issues. He does now. But when he was in Cleveland, so his first season in the league, everybody has an adjustment, right? 62%.
Sure.
The following
Sure.
season, 68%, 67%,
That's a good release.
70%. You know what I mean? So he had a
Yeah.
stretch there where I guess he was really in command of that system. He was, I think he had Andre Johnson for a little while. You know, he was
Andre Johnson,
connected.
Will Fuller. He had the
B-Hop,
guys.
there you go. Right. So he had weapons. He understood the system. He had solid offensive coaching. I think he was he was playing under Bill O'Brien.
O'Brien.
Right. So at that point, the accuracy was there. It seems to have completely left him. So it's tough, man. It's tough. I hear you, Sneed.
All right, and then one last thing before I let you go.
Mhm.
I'm the type of dude, I admit when I'm wrong.
Mhm.
Aaron Rodgers didn't look bad yesterday.
I don't think he did, but I also don't think they didn't do everything to help him. But it was game one, so you know.
Right, but what I'm saying, I have to admit where I'm wrong, and this goes out to Transformer, my brother, right?
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers looked good in the pocket, surprisingly better than I thought he would be I thought he would have happy feet. I thought he would try to scramble. I think, obviously his speed is going to be, he's slower now. He's older. He's off injury. He was pretty effective. I mean, I'm just evaluating his play. The outcomes they lost.
No, I get it.
He's able to throw he threw a couple of nice throws, some darts. He had a couple of crappy throws, but who doesn't?
Right.
So I'm admitting
I mean,
he
missed the whole year,
He was better than I thought he was going to be, you know?
Right. Yeah, appreciate that. Transformer, I'm sure will love to hear that, right? It's like I tell my son, as a man, when you're wrong, you gotta stand up and say it and just move on from that. Learn from it and move on. It's not a big thing.
Yeah.
We men don't have difficulty accepting accountability for our flaws.
True.
I'll leave it there. All right, Steve, man. Great talking to you as always. I appreciate the call, brother. Thanks so much for the support.
Appreciate you.
All right, man. Do we have anybody else that wants to call and give your thoughts on this Deshaun Watson craziness? Whether it's his declined play on the field, or whether it's all the madness that's going on with him off the field, and including him catching a new case, at least a civil one anyway. If not, we will go ahead and move on to the final topic of the night. And this one was another one, man. Like, if y'all know me, I really prefer to keep topics like the sport itself, right? I don't like all the extraneous stuff that goes on outside of the lines or off the court or off the field or what have you. But unfortunately, those are things that all have to get addressed. Why? Because they affect the league. They affect the product that we see. They affect the players that we love to watch, and all that kind of gets intertwined, right? And so, there was a time I used to think that all that matters is what goes on the field or between the lines. And that's not really the case, because these extraneous outside things can affect what happens between the lines. So it has to be addressed. So Tyreek Hill, one of the most explosive, one of the most dangerous wide receivers in the league, one of the most explosive and dangerous wide receivers we've ever seen, right? He's, in my opinion, in terms of explosiveness and danger, I think he is almost as dangerous as Randy Moss. Not quite, but almost. Randy Moss was just as fast. Difference is he was like 6'4", right? So he could high point the ball and be even more dangerous in those type of situations than Tyreek Hill is. Meanwhile, Tyreek Hill can catch a short one and take it to the house, right? The effect availability, absolutely huge impacts. Absolutely. So why am I bringing up Tyreek Hill? Today's Tuesday. So Sunday, Tyreek Hill was on the way to the game, and he was stopped and briefly detained by police in Miami. And that became a thing because obviously Tyreek Hill is a black man in America, and we know there are some issues with that in terms of the way black men are often treated by law enforcement in this country. Like, it is what it is. Now, does that mean that every cop is bad, or every cop has nefarious intentions with every incident involving African-American men? Absolutely not. But we're all kind of taught and trained and mentally conditioned with the things that we see to interact, or we should be, to interact with police officers in a very specific way. But sometimes we don't, and that can turn bad, right? So before I even do that, so why do we kind of feel the way we do as black men in America in terms of interaction with law enforcement. And before I even get to that, let me say me personally, Bruce Hope, host of the Format Podcast, I have never in 46 years on this planet had a negative interaction with a police officer. I can say that. Now, among my circle, black friends I have, black men, etc., many of whom are professional, highly educated, etc., I'm the only one who can say that. So I'm aware that I am something of an anomaly in terms of having had interactions, being pulled over, being stopped, or have you, but never having a particularly negative interaction with police officers, law enforcement, right? But that said, many African American men have, and it gives them, a legitimate fear and influences how they behave in said interactions, right? And so, why do many black men feel that way? All right, so data indicates this. I was looking this up and preparing for this this topic earlier. So here's some stuff, right? Data indicates that black men in America experience a disproportionate amount of violence during police interactions. Studies show that Black Americans, particularly Black men, are more likely to experience threats and non-fatal use of force during police encounters compared to other racial groups. For instance, Black Americans had the highest rates of police handcuffing, threats of force, and physical force in cases where police initiated contact. Okay, more. Black men in America are statistically more likely to have a fatal encounter with police compared to other racial groups. Studies show that Black Americans, who make up 13% of the U.S. population, accounted for 27% of those fatally shot and killed by police in 2021. This means Black people are twice as likely as white people to be shot and killed by police officers. Now, I know there are many people, and I'm not the guy who generally gets into the whole race thing and all that. That's not me, right? I really do believe in letting individuals demonstrate to you who they are, right? Whether it's individuals of a particular racial persuasion, individuals of a particular occupation, etc. That said, and whenever I get pulled over, I'm very forthcoming. I'm very upright. I'm very, I try greatly to comply. Even before they get to the car, like say I get pulled over for speeding. I got pulled over for speeding a few times. Before they even get to the car, when I see them behind me, rolling down the windows, I take everything out, the license, registration, insurance, and I have it there and ready. And I put it on the dash, and then I put my hands 10 and 2, right, on the wheel. That way, no one can say I'm reaching for something and they were concerned what I was reaching for. Everything is controlled. I try to be as courteous as possible to the officer. Why? Because they're in a position of authority in that situation, and you don't want any static. You just don't, right? So, yeah, so there's that. That's me personally, right? So anyway, research from Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health found that Black Americans are 3.23 times more likely than white Americans to be killed by police. Another study highlighted that Black men face a 1 in 1,000 chance of being killed by police over their lifetime, compared to about 1 in 2,000 for men in general. And so there's a lot of people out there who want to say that it's a myth about Black people being in more danger from the police, et cetera, et cetera. Like, for instance, if you listen to a guy I listen to a lot, Jason Whitlock, I agree with some of what he says. I disagree with a lot of what he says, but I try to get, I'm a person that tries to be fair and listen to both sides of things. But he's a guy that constantly pushes back against the concept of systemic racism and, Black people dealing with totally different situations in terms of their law enforcement encounters. But all the numbers, all the studies prove that, right? But anyway, this is interesting too. I would also recommend that anyone listening, if you are cool with a police officer or you have a police officer you can talk to, because I actually have a very good friend who's a cop and he's NYPD. And we had a long talk over an hour this morning, really breaking down this whole situation and his thoughts on it, because obviously he's been in numerous stop situations and numerous situations over a nearly 20-year decorated career as an NYPD officer, right? And detective. And so we had a really long talk about this, and he kind of opened my eyes to things from the officer perspective. And, I'm not going to quote that conversation here because I don't remember enough of it to quote it and give him justice and fairly quote what he was saying. But I would suggest to you that if any of you listening have friends who are in law enforcement and who are officers, talk to them about this, get their take so you can kind of see from their perspective what it is. That doesn't necessarily mean that you will agree at the end, but it's always good to get that other perspective. Yes, believe me, people say it's a myth. Absolutely. Yes, there are a lot of people. The aforementioned, I mentioned Jason Whitlock. He says it is. And matter of fact, I think his show today, he talked at length about Tyreek Hill. I haven't had a chance to listen to it, but based on previous commentary he has spoken about in terms of black people and interacting with the police, etc. He carried, and I'm not trying to make this political, but he definitely carries the water for the right. And so, yeah, check that out. But yeah, he's one of those. And there are other people like that. So yeah, back to the Tyreek Hill thing. So we know that when you, as a black person, when you interact with police and law enforcement situations, especially when they're pulling you over, etc., you get nervous, etc. Now, I've said all that. Let me flip it. My immediate thought when I heard about this, even before the body cam footage came out, this is the other day, my immediate thought was, I have a feeling. It just struck me. I had nothing to go by, but my immediate thought was, I have a feeling that Tyreek Hill got mouthy with the cop when they tried to pull him over. I just had that feeling, right? There was nothing to go on by that. But then we got the body cam footage. I guess it came out yesterday. Came out either yesterday, yeah. So, I watched some of it, and I think the whole body cam footage is like 27 minutes long, but I have about a 2-minute clip of it to show you. So let's check this out, and then we'll come back and discuss it further.
Hey, don't knock on my window like that, man. Why don't you have your seatbelt on? Don't knock on my window. Why don't you have your seatbelt on? Don't knock on my window like that, no. Like what? Don't knock on my window like that. Why you have it up? Don't knock on my window like that. Why you have it up? I have to knock to let you know I'm here. That way you can lower it and talk to you. Just get my ticket, bro, so I can go. I'm finna be late, gang. Do what you gotta do. Keep it down. Hey! Keep your window down. Hey! Keep your window down. Keep your window down. I'm gonna get you out of the car. As a matter of fact, get out of the car. Get out of the car. Give me that. Break that window. Get out of the car. Get out of the car right now. When we tell you to do something, you do it. You understand? You understand? Not what you want, but what we tell you. You're a little confused. I'm getting out, bro. Too late. Too late. All right, bro. Take me to jail, bro. Do what you gotta do, bro. We will. Good, bro. It is good. Hey. Don't worry about it. I hung up the phone. Stop calling. Call Drew. Hey, call Drew. Call Drew, bro. Call Drew. Hey, call Drew, bro. Hey, what? Hey, call Drew, bro. Just call Drew.
So yes, Hispanic cop, and I think you and I were on the same page when you said you assumed the same thing. Figured he talked slick. So here's the first thing, right? I actually listened to and watched a longer portion of that video. So when the guy comes up and he's knocking on the window, and Tyreek's like, "Why are you banging on my window like that?" So the first thing the guy says is, the cop, he's like, "Well, I have to knock on your window to let you know I'm here, right?" Yeah, exactly, Sneed, exactly. It started off bad with contentious energy, ended with aggressive cop doing the most. This America, right? So this is interesting, right? So Tyreek is like, well, why are you banging on my window? So first of all, if you notice, his windows were heavily tinted. So, okay, if you're the cop, you're saying roll the window down. Remember in my earlier soliloquy, I said, when I get pulled over, the first thing I do, roll all the windows down, right? And my cop buddy that I was talking to earlier today, he always says, he goes up, he says, roll all the windows down and turn on the dome light, right? Okay, cool. That way you can see everything that's going on in there. So if I'm the cop, he's got the windows rolled up. They're heavily tinted. I don't know what's going on in there, right? He could be armed. I don't know, right? So there's a safety component there. I don't know what's happening. So roll down the window. So he says, time to roll down the window, roll down the window. He doesn't want to roll down the window, right? So now we have issue of compliance, right? So I'm looking at this. A lot of this, I believe, could have been avoided, right? With a little bit of courtesy and following directions. Okay, cool. So he doesn't want to roll down the window. And then he's like, you know what? Forget it. Get out of the car, right? Okay, so now I have to take control of the situation. And again, my cop buddy is explaining a lot of this to me. I have to take control of this situation. I have to make it a situation where I feel like, there's safety involved. So they get him down on the ground. So my question to my buddy was, yo, listen, did it take, 3 or 4 of them to get him down? And he says to me, bro, you don't understand what it is, when you're dealing with a grown person and you're trying to subdue them to get the cuffs on. It's not easy. He told me one time he had, a female who was very aggressive and going at him, and he had a cuffer, and he's a big guy. He's a bigger guy than me, probably about maybe 6'3", 240. And, he had a heck of a time trying to get this. It took him and his partner to get this squirming, skinny female down and cuffed, right? So it looked bad that there were a number of these cops doing this, but he's explaining to me, and again, I'm not trying to explain away what we just saw in the video. I'm telling you some of the perspective that was explained to me by a veteran and decorated NYPD detective, right? So anyway, he's saying that, it's more difficult than it looks. So he's like, first, they put him down to subdue him because they have to ensure that they take complete control of the situation and safety. Now they got him there. So the next thing is, so I'm like, okay, they got him down. Why did they have to pick him up just to go sit him down on the curb again? He's like, well, so my buddy says, well, they got to get him into a situation where you're thinking about the safety of him, you're thinking about the safety of the officers, thinking about the safety of anybody possibly involved, right? So you get him, and sitting him on the curb is the easiest way to get him to a safer spot. So they stood him up because obviously he was laid face down, and then they want him to sit down. So it's like, listen, just comply. Now, could they have been a little more patient with his compliance? Yeah. But what my buddy says is, when he escalated the situation, once the situation gets escalated, it's really hard to back down off of that, right? And the back down is not going to happen from the officers in play here until they feel like their safety, the safety of everybody around, and the situation is completely secure. So I see both sides. I see it the way, and he gave me a much more in-depth breakdown, including situations that he's in which he's been involved over the years, his thoughts about it, how he assesses it as a police officer in that situation, et cetera, et cetera. And, like I said, he and I talked for over an hour this morning regarding this, and I hope I'm not misquoting you, bro. But I'm just giving kind of quick synopsis of some of the things that you told me. Anyway, so with that, I think immediately you see these videos, not just you, but you, me, all of us as people, we see these videos, and the thought is, wow, we got these going over the top. And and the way they were talking, it's like, okay, these dudes are definitely out here trying to flex. Because I'm thinking, first, you knew that this was Tyreek Hill once you had his documents, right? You knew who this was. And when you ran his plates, chances are you knew who he was as well. So it's like, was all this really necessary? And again, the flip side, Tyreek Hill probably could have made this go a lot more smoothly from the very beginning. Officer, listen, I know I was speeding. I'm trying to get to the game. I'm late for the game. I'm fully aware I was speeding. Give me the ticket. I'll take care of it. Thank you. I mean, that's simple, right? Does that mean it would have gone as nicely as that? Maybe, maybe not. But what's the old saying? You catch more flies with honey than vinegar, right? So maybe you have a better chance of it not escalating to the point that it did if you were, again, more compliant and more courteous. I think that has, something to do with it. And again, I'm not blaming it all on him, because I do think maybe there was some, like you said, some extra aggression and testosterone from the law enforcement officers here. But on the flip side, probably could have been avoided. What'd you say, Sneed? I think it's insanity they haven't engineered and designed more effective detaining devices. We have incredible tech across all parts of life except this. Yeah. I think maybe the bigger departments with larger budgets are more so able to do that. But this was Miami, so you got to assume Miami's got a very large budget. They deal with a lot of murders and a lot of violent crimes and a lot of drugs and all that. But I think a lot of the police departments throughout the country, their budgets aren't able to support what you're talking about, Sneed. So anyway, yeah. So obviously, when you heard him, Tyreek Hill yelling, "Call Drew, call Drew," the Drew to which he was referring was his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, who shortly, if you watch the whole 27-minute video, he showed up there later. I don't know if he let, cops securing the outer perimeter know who he was, because he was able to walk right through and talk to his guy. And I believe Drew Rosenhaus is also a lawyer. So you don't want to mess with lawyers, right? A lot of these high-powered agents are also members of the bar. They're also lawyers. So yeah, this whole thing, I think it was crazy, man. It was crazy. But so just watching this, a lot of people are up in arms. I heard Chris Canty on Unsportsman really going off about this situation or this morning. I believe Stephen A. Smith had something to say about it. I know, obviously, Rob Parker and Chris Broussard had something to say about it, and I'm going to play that for you right now, and then we'll come back and talk a little more before we wrap up the show.
All right, Rob, what was your feeling on once you saw the body cam?
I always thought that there had to be more to it, right? And
yeah, because last night Tyreek after the game said he wasn't disrespectful,
right,
and didn't curse, and he didn't curse from the moment we saw. But he was disrespectful,
right? And that
he was.
And Chris, this when you're when you're dealing with the police and you got to be careful, right? Because as soon as you kind of cross that line, then you give them the right to do stuff like they did, put you in handcuffs and say that you're not being following instructions and whatnot. Right. You got to be.
And they said he was uncooperative,
right? And you got to be. And Chris, that's it. Like it's not like I've never been arrested, but I've been around and I've seen cops act nasty towards people. I've heard, you know what I mean, and things like that. But in this case, he had every reason to me to be like, you're right in your work environment. You could have made this thing probably a lot easier, right? And saying,
well, let's describe. I mean, for those who may not have seen the body cam. Well,
can we play it or no?
I don't know if we could.
Okay, but go ahead.
Play it.
Describe it.
So. It looked like he was speeding. I can't measure the speed, but when you see
you got to take
you got to take. First, you see his car, right, and it looks like he speeds by, and then so a cop on a motorcycle follows him, tells him to pull over because he's speeding. Tyreek pulls over. He's in, I don't know, it looks like a Lamborghini or something. I don't know what it is, but he's got tinted windows. It's a black sports car with tinted windows. So the windows are up when the cop goes, to the door, and so he knocks on the window. And Tyreek rolls it down a little and says, don't be knocking on my window like that. He says it a few times. And then I think Tyreek says something to the effect of, just do what y'all got to do. I'm going to be later. I'm going on my way or whatever. And then he rolls the window up, and the window, remember, is tinted. So the cop is like, roll the window down. And Tyreek rolls it down a little bit. And then said, don't be telling me what to do. Don't be telling me, and so he won't really roll the window down he's not rolling it down all the way.
And the reason why, the whole thing with tinted windows is, and I'm not saying in this case being a current athlete, but tinted windows, somebody could have a weapon.
Oh my
you know
gosh.
what I mean? Right.
Absolutely. 100%. If I'm a cop,
right,
and you got tinted windows,
I don't know what you got in there.
Roll the car
right.
down, right? Why'd you roll it up? To get something?
Right.
I don't know. Right. And
I'm just saying. Right.
Right. No, I that's exactly why you want the person to roll the window down.
Right.
So I can see that
there's a reason why.
Getting something, right? It's not just flexing. And so, then the cops ultimately are like, they start, pulling rank because you're being disrespectful, and they pull him out of the car. And that's when they throw him on the ground, handcuffed him. He didn't curse. By that point, once they pull him out, he's kind of being more, submissive, I guess. But they put him, that's when they had him face down, they cuff him, and then they bring him over to the side. And then a second cop comes over, and he's being excessive. The second cop is like unnecessary. Well, and you're right, Rob. Did he need to cuff Tyreek?
No.
You can argue, yeah, he didn't. But to your point, once you start acting like you're disrespecting the authority of the cop.
Well, once you do that, you give them the license, Chris,
right,
to act that way. If you don't do that, I can't say I guarantee. There's a good chance you're not going to be in handcuffs.
Yeah. So a lot of what I said earlier was kind of echoed by Rob and Chris, and man, it's really tough. And I think that part of what you deal with in this situation, it's a hard road to walk as a black man in America. It's also a hard road to walk as law enforcement, trying to do your job, trying to do it right. But I don't know, man. It's really tough. Chopper, what's good? I think you're new here. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, man. If you're enjoying the content, I don't know how long you've been here, but if you're enjoying the content, make sure you hit that like and subscribe, and make sure you share the show. And obviously we're live right now. You can go back and watch the whole thing later. But yeah, this whole thing is crazy. It's definitely something I wanted to talk about. I think there's error on both sides in this situation, but also having had the opportunity to really talk it through in depth with, again, a veteran and decorated member of the NYPD to kind of give me his thoughts on this whole situation from a law enforcement officer's perspective. Really, I thought that was good. And I would suggest that if any of you have that opportunity to talk with someone in a situation like that, please do so, because it's always good to be able to see both sides of a situation and not just to put our own personal biases, experiences, and perspectives and opinions on this stuff. Appreciate you, Chopper. Appreciate you. All right. So what I'm going to do, I've been talking about this for a while. I thought it was important for me to come on and give my commentary on it. But I am going to, at this time, for this the final topic, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put the phone number back in the chat, 904-219-8264. And I'm going to open up the phone lines one more time. I would love for anybody who wants to call in, give me your thoughts on this Tyreek Hill situation. I definitely would love for you guys to share that with me, because it's something I've been giving a lot of thought to since it happened. All right, let's go. Tyler, what's good, my man?
Bruce, what's up, brother?
Chilling. What you got?
Hey, I got to make it quick because I'm on a little bit of a business trip. But,
Okay.
First things first, my family is, we've got some police officers. My Uncle Dan, he's the reverend at my wedding. One of my closest people in my entire life, love him to death. 30-year veteran of Baltimore City Police.
Okay. I know he's seen a lot. Sneed, call me back, man. Call me back after this call.
Yeah, he's seen a lot. And, once I talked to him about this, he said, you got these young guys who are just covered in tattoos and they're big with muscles and everything, but they are soft. They are
okay.
soft. He's walking around. He's about 6'6", red hair, red beard, and they throw him undercover. He's been there 30 years. You don't think he's arrested everybody and generations through that area of West Baltimore.
Right.
But everybody knows who he is. He gets called every name in the book. He's fine with it. You know what I mean? These guys act like being rude is a felon. Tyreek, if he's being rude, he's had some run-ins with the law and things like that. So I think maybe he's not an angel, but he wound his window down. He basically said, "Stop banging on my window," and for that he got yanked out and roughed up while in cuffs and everything else. And they showed a couple different angles with Calais. If you put the Walter Payton Man of the Year in handcuffs just for kind of standing there, they said back up behind the car. He backed up behind the car, and then the officer with the hand tattoos came over and cuffed him too, and then cuffing Jonnu Smith and everything else that happened.
Right.
I mean, it's just you could tell they're right next to the stadium. They're surrounded by a Lamborghini, a G-Wagon, and then you got I was shocked to see Calais Campbell's big self sitting in a damn Tesla, but you're in no danger. I mean, the officers are standing there going, "You know who this is, right?" I don't know if you heard the audio, but they said, "You know who this is, right?" And they said, "No." So this is the Dolphins star player. He said, "Oh man," like he knew it was over. He knew the body cam was going to be hit.
Right.
So, what if I wasn't Tyreek Hill? What if I was just another guy who got pulled over by the police, thrown on the ground? If a guy, isn't sitting down quick enough, you jump out of your shoes to come over and, while handcuffed, force him to the ground. I mean, it's just, there's no really, it gives a bad name to, so many good officers out there who are, serving and protecting. And I think people in general, especially being from Baltimore, we're kind of jaded with some of this stuff, but we all try to see the good in things, and life is full of lessons, like Steve said earlier. And this is going to be a real lesson for these guys because they've already retained some high-powered lawyers, according to ESPN, and they're going to be fighting, to stay employed. But it's a real uphill battle. I've already heard things coming out of Miami that, they may now rely on state police to police the area around
Around the stadium?
the Dolphin Stadium instead of Dade County. So
okay.
That'll be kind of bad news for that department. You know what I mean? That's an enormous area. So that's my feedback. I'm interested to hear what you got to say. I mean, we're all level-headed people. I'm former military, just like a lot of people on here, yourself included.
Yes, sir.
Who has an understanding of authority and what comes along with authority, and rules of escalation and rules of force, and how to gain compliance and de-escalation and everything like that.
Yeah.
Just if anything, there needs to be a class on de-escalation just across the department. Because the last thing we need is another one.
I agree.
This could have went bad.
Yeah, it could have. I really wish that I was able to more effectively convey more of the discussion I had with my buddy earlier, because it was a really good talk. And that's why I'm saying, like, obviously you have this opportunity, as you mentioned, your uncle, but a lot of people don't want to really take the time to sit down and talk with. And again, I'm not trying to cape up for these officers here. I'm just like, I really try to be very objective and look at both sides of things, and being able to hear a totally different perspective on this from the law enforcement side when the video looked that bad, it was really good, and it was kind of eye-opening for me. So that was cool too. Right. And I have some uncles that are longtime law enforcement officers, and I'm probably going to end up calling one tonight or tomorrow to get his thoughts and his take on this whole situation. I'm sure he'll have some good stuff to say about it. But yeah, I appreciate your call, Tyler. Thanks so much for your feedback on this topic, man.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
No doubt, man.
You got it.
All right, Sneed, go ahead. I saw you were trying to get in, man. Give me a call. Sneed.
What up, Bruce?
Yes, sir.
Hey, that was a good call, man.
Yeah, I thought so as well.
Good perspective. Solid. Yeah, the action that takes place in this situation, and you have like testosterone up the wazoo.
Mm-hmm.
You have an NFL player who is paid tens of millions of dollars per year.
Correct.
Who literally feels like he's King Kong. Everybody tells him how great he is. Everybody tells him how unstoppable he is. He's out of his element already. And, he's thorny. He's spiky, and then the beginning of that footage. And then you have a cop who, like, let's be honest, man, they're humans, and they've had previous experiences in their lives.
Right.
They could have been bullied as children.
Mm-hmm.
They could have been bullied as young adults.
Yes.
Now they're in a position to do the right thing, but they're doing the wrong thing. And it's a tit for tat. And one has a badge and the other one doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
This has to be the most volatile interaction in our society.
Yeah, I'd say
police,
so.
Police and highly accomplished men.
Mm-hmm.
Like oh my God, man, that is tough. I've seen good cops, the way they handle certain things.
Mm-hmm.
They're really relaxed.
Yeah.
That guy was not relaxed, right? He was uptight. He was angry. He was amped up. There was venom in how he was speaking, moving,
So what I'll say about that, let me interrupt you for a second, is on the longer version of the video, he doesn't start out that way, right? He walks up to the car,
sure.
and as as I said a couple of times earlier, when it's me, obviously I'm not Tyreek Hill and everyone's different, but when it's me, as soon as I get pulled over, the windows go down, I get out the stuff, I put it on the dash, and my hands are on the wheel. That's it. Immediately, I'm already taking precautions to limit any extraneous movements I may have to do, to limit any extra requests that the officer is going to have from me, other than, license, registration. Do you know why I pulled you over? Right. I'm trying to minimize all of that. Yes, sir. No, sir. It's not that hard. Right. And so when Tyreek Hill in the longer video, when that happens and he's got the windows up, heavily tinted, the officer can't see. He doesn't know what's going on. So the officer's knocking on the window, not banging on it, knocking on it. He's like, why are you banging on my window like that? He's like, well, I have to let you know that I'm here, right? And the officer at the very beginning seemed relatively courteous, but those type of situations, to your point, can go bad quickly. So, yeah, I hear you, though.
Tyreek Hill wanted a situation. You know, the way he was acting, he wanted smoke. He thought he could handle the smoke. He didn't think it was going to escalate that much, probably. But it did, because it can. When you play out these scenarios in your head, you have to assume that the worst outcome is possible.
Exactly. It shouldn't be that way, but it's the smart way to go about it. Remember the movie Training Day?
He was irresponsible, right?
Yeah. Remember Training Day when Denzel was like, you want to go to jail or you want to go home? You know? In any interaction I have with the cop, all I'm thinking is I'm trying to get home to my family. So let me just, make this go as smoothly as possible. And that doesn't mean they're all out to be nefarious or do something bad to me. But, I'm just like, okay, let me do what I got to do and get out of here in one piece,
I do it, when I get pulled over, I just assume I got a bad one.
Yeah, and it sucks.
That's just the baseline. Like, that's my baseline assumption. If I get a good one, cool, that's a blessing. But I just assume I'm going to get a bad one, and I just roll from there. That's how I play my hand.
I can agree with that.
Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate you taking my call.
No doubt, Sneed, man. Thank you for the call. Appreciate it.
Thanks, brother.
Chopper here, he says, and I'm about to let you guys get out of here. Chopper says, and this is actually a decent comment. He says, when you get pulled over by people with guns, you're not in charge. Best to shut up and be humble. You can take them to court later and y'all have credibility. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? You can't, you probably just, do the best you can to get out of that situation in one piece. And again, it's messed up that we even have to think that way, but that's the best way to go about it. And again, am I saying that it was right what happened to Tyreek Hill? No. Am I saying it was wrong? No. Now that I have a better perspective from the other side, it's just interesting. But for those of you who've been here, man, thank you for your participation in the chat. Thank you for your calls. I appreciate you. If you haven't already, make sure you guys go ahead, hit that like and subscribe on the way out. Make sure you're sharing the show. Like I said, this was just these topics were things I wanted to jump on here, and I wanted to discuss and give my thoughts regarding. And so, I know it was an odd time, but I wanted to make sure that I don't know if I'm the only one who wants to watch the debate later, but I definitely wanted to make sure I was done well in advance of that. But so we should be doing a show tomorrow night, our normal Wednesday night show. It'll be about 7 or 8 o'clock. I anticipate that. But we'll be back with you, and it should be the whole crew, me, G, Transformer, and hopefully Tyler. He will he will be a more regular and new addition to our merry band of men. I guess isn't that what they called Robin Hood's crew, the merry band of men, whatever. But yeah, he should be joining the team, so we're looking for that. Let's go ahead and we'll end it here. So again, thanks for stopping in, thanks for watching the show. Appreciate y'all, and I'm out. Peace.